Good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin Nail, and I'm joined by my usual broadcast partner, former NHL defenseman Tom Laidlaw, who played 11 seasons for the New York Rangers and Los Angeles Kings. This is the Laidlaw and Allen Report. We come to you twice a week to talk all things hockey. And this week, of course, we are officially on the clock. The countdown has begun. We're now, 4 days? No, is that right? 5 days to the trade deadline, 3 p.m. Monday. We just getting a trickle. Usually by now we have more trades, but we had one yesterday. Nico Sturm of Minnesota traded to Colorado for Tyson Yost. We also had Josh Manson going from Anaheim to Colorado for a pretty good return, I thought. Drew Hillison was a real good prospect for them, kind of I would view him as a kind of a Ryan Suter type. And by that, I mean, he's a guy who's known as being kind of a two-way defenseman, but very good defensively, more so than offensively. He's not a guy that's going to go coast to coast with the puck, but they like him.
Are we surprised about Anaheim trading away players? They're in the hunt for the playoff spot still, but are they saying this doesn't matter? We're really not that good of a team right now.
Well, I wonder if this is this Pat Verbeek, having hung out with Steve Yzerman for so long that they view it the same. That if you're competing, you're in it to win the cup, and they're not ready to do that. You need to get draft picks, you need to get higher picks.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm less I get that you need the quantity of picks because you got to hope you land on something other. But if you look historically, the chances of finding players after the first 60 picks, it just isn't good. Like It's almost like you're spinning the roulette wheel.
Yeah, totally. And even those top picks too. Like you look at some of these guys like Capo Caco isn't playing. I mean, again, he's still young.
Right.
Hedel is still young too, so you hope they're going to improve. But even those guys, there's no guarantee. Like you're giving up players to get those picks. There's no guarantees even those high picks are going to become players.
Well, and I've had a debate with another journalist about this as well, who says that he likes to say, guys develop at their own pace, and that's true. Yeah. That's certainly true. However, Troy Terry is a real aberration. You're not usually 24 and start, all of a sudden looking like $1 million as a scorer. Now with a goalie, that's a different story, but in baseball, that's commonplace.
Yeah.
24, 25, you come up, you've been in the minors 7 or 8 years. But not in hockey.
Yeah.
Like if you're not starting to show it, the really good players, most of them, start showing it at 20.
And that's the difference too. That's changed over time because a lot of the guys before didn't come in. If they may come in and play, but they'd be sitting on the bench for a year or two. They're not playing a whole lot and then really get themselves going. But I think they're more willing to. I think because the cap, they're kind of forced to play those younger players. They're making less money. They're under the entry level system, so they can make less money. And still, if they can play, then they help the hockey team. So.
I wanted to bring this up and have you talk about it because you have the unique experience of having been a player and also an agent. It's fascinating to me that, I think in general, everyone would agree that the salary cap has helped the NHL. It's helped them because, we have, revenue sharing now, so we don't just have the have-nots. I think it's almost forgotten now that prior to the introduction of the salary cap, I remember the Red Wings were spending about $80 million on their payroll and the Penguins were down in the 20s.
Yeah.
Like that's the level of disparity that we had. But one thing that's happened with this flat cap, for the most part, I think it hasn't worked out the way the general managers thought it would. I remember, and I actually have stories on this, when GMs were quoted as saying, well, every year there's going to be, you'll make hard decisions about your players. You'll let them go back, but there'll be other players and there'll be a big pile every year of guys. But it hasn't happened that way. Guys, for the most part, have general managers have kept their top players. Excuse me. I look at the Philadelphia Flyers right now, and Claude Giroux has been a very important player to that franchise.
Mm-hmm.
He likes it there. He really doesn't want to leave it. And they simply are not in a position to re-sign him. I don't see any possible way that they could do that.
But don't you think if they really wanted to, they would find a way, and like trading other players to make room?
Well, I think that's still a possibility, but it's hard to trade players now because of the flat cap. Especially guys that aren't performing. Like James Van Riemsdyk is a great example.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking about. Can you unload him? But yeah, who's going to take him with that money he's making?
Well, yeah, it's $7 million.
Yeah.
And everybody's got their own. I mean, you're going to have to give up something really big to get, Arizona or Detroit or somebody at the bottom end to do all that. But I don't know. What's your read on whether the cap has been everything that we thought it was going to be?
Well, I think look back at history. Whenever there's been a new system put in place, we, general managers, all of us never seem to get it right how it's going to affect the game. Right? General managers always try to find a way to figure it out. Look at Breezeball down in Tampa with Kucherov missing all last year, so they were able to go over the cap. Those kind of creative and somewhat lucky things. You hate to say lucky because the player got hurt, but it always seems to me that it's general managers always try to figure out a way to get it done that they didn't think about at the time when they first saw the collective bargaining agreement, right? So to me, it's no surprise. Listen, after being a former agent, we fought hard to not have the cap. The escrow system, obviously, is something the players still do not like. That's where they have to give back money to the owners if it doesn't get to that 50-50 split. But players are still, look at the money players are still making. Some of these defensemen making $9 million. I don't think it's really hurt the players at all. And I really think it has improved the game because now it's more the teams have all gotten together to help promote the game more, find new ways of generating revenues. I mean, we talked all the time. I think when Bettman started as commissioner of the league, I think it was like $700 million was the revenues. Now, aren't we getting close to $5 billion now in revenues? All the outdoor games, all that kind of stuff. So, listen, again, the big bad word was the cap before, and that's when Bob Goodenow fought hard if the Players Association did not have it. Looking back at it now, they wasted the whole season and gave it up anyways. And again, I don't think it's really hurt the game. In fact, I think it's helped the game a lot.
Yeah, and there's been areas of growth that the gaming industry, betting has changed everything in terms of revenue potential as well.
Yeah. And you look at the expansion cities, how well things have gone in Vegas. Seattle hasn't had a great year this year, but that's a fantastic sports town. So, yeah, a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's licensed to print money. It's just to add a team.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. Like, I know somebody wrote to me, says, why does it make sense to have the NHL would be 32 teams? And because I've said, why not go to 34?
Yeah.
And they said, well, that's ridiculous because it's be larger than the NFL. Yeah. And I said, but it's a different scenario. The NHL is a gate revenue driven league. Yep. Those other sports are not. The NFL could play to empty stadiums and make money.
Right. And you generate more TV revenue too because now you're in more markets, right? So
sure. So.
Think back when I played, it was 21 teams. Like if somebody had told me we'd have 32 when we played with 21, I wouldn't have believed it. I said, there's no way. It's just not happening.
Well, I think we've reached the point where, like, I don't understand that Commissioner Gary Bettman's resistance of expanding the playoffs. Like, to me, you got half the teams missing the playoffs. Like that's too many, in my opinion. And I'm a baseball fan, and I love the play-in rounds of baseball. Like they're exciting. People want to tune in. Imagine if you had that, like one game, like you can charge whatever you want. Like Toronto, if Toronto was in a one game play-in to get in the playoffs, the average ticket price could be $200 if people.
Yeah. That more and more I think about that would be fun, right? How much that one game would mean, right?
Here's the argument that I just find ludicrous. Is people say don't that it's terrible that you play 82 games and you got to play a one game series, and I say, well, don't get in that position then.
Yeah, exactly.
This is just a bonus that you get a chance they're giving you, and oftentimes the whole 82 game season comes down to what happens on the last Sunday of the So it's just a different day that we're holding the one game that matters on.
Right.
You know,
I guess the only thing I'm looking at, where was it? So in the was it the West or the East? So Washington's got the last playoff spot now, and below them is Columbus, the next one, and it's a 13-point difference. I guess that's my only concern. If you got a big spread between the one team,
but that can happen now. You know, it could. I mean, it doesn't. You know.
Yeah.
So we can't just say, well, if there's more than a 10-point difference, you know.
Yeah. And it is what it is, right? I mean, your playoffs are playoffs now, the way the system is. We could always argue that it should be something different and other teams would get in. But
yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, I think a little rat tail is kind of like in wrestling and high school wrestling. If you had kids that wrestle, you have the little rat tail to get into the thing. It's a little thing in the bottom of the bracket. So that's what this is.
Ooh, that would be fun, right, man? To have that one play-in game, that game would be fantastic. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. The other thing I've thought about, I've talked about this with Bob Duff, my partner in crime at Detroit Hockey Now, and in soccer they have the I forgot what it's called now, but every team is in it. And they play it all season long,
right?
And it's single elimination. The cup, what is it? The FA Cup, I guess it is.
Yeah, FIFA.
Yeah, FIFA. And what if you did that? You just in the course of the NHL season, we played for the Gordie Howe Cup,
right?
So everyone's in it, single elimination. You invite the American Hockey League teams are in it as well. So while you're playing your NHL season, you mix in these games.
Oh.
And at the end, you have the winner of our Gordie Howe Cup play the winner of the Champions League in Europe.
Oh, okay.
Or something.
Wow.
But what that does is, suppose, and we see this all the time, you're the Montreal Canadiens and you have a terrible year, but you're in this Gordie Howe Cup. And so you've won your first 2 rounds. You've played well in those games. And now all of a sudden you got something to play for.
Yeah, very true. Yeah.
The FA Cup.
You get the thinking cap on today.
Yeah. I just think it would be really, I mean, it's so big over in Europe. And people say things like, well, it's soccer. Well, soccer is so huge compared to our little game,
Yeah, around the world. Definitely.
Right. So it was good enough for them.
Yeah, I like those ideas a lot, but I was the one we were questioning Colorado's goaltending. I think you always kind of thought that it was better than they were getting. Now Kemper's got 2 shutouts in a row there in Colorado.
Well, he's just played great for a long time now. He's got a winning record, and now they don't have any issues. I mean, the only worry now is will he hold up? He's been injured a lot, so we'll have to see. But I don't know. Isn't that true? No matter, Kenny Allen used to say, I don't care what team you are, you lose your number 1 goalie, you're out of it. So
what does Toronto do? They're getting terrible right now. Do they? I mean, who are they going to get? Like, if Fleury doesn't want to go anywhere in Chicago, then who else are you going to get? Huh?
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody there. I mean, Holtby, but Dallas is in it, although they have slipped a little bit.
And I saw where Herdobin is out for the season now. They just reported that today. So,
yeah.
So, hey, bad news, sad news again. We've had a tough year here for hockey fans around the New York area. We lost Emile Francis, Roger Bear, Clark Gillies, and now Jean Potvin, who played on the first 2 cup-winning teams for the Islanders, passed away. So
I didn't hear that. Was that last night?
It might have been the night before. That's obviously people know that's Dennis Potvin's brother. I think older brother, I believe. So, and I guess from what I read, I didn't realize he'd really stayed in the area and stayed pretty active in the area too.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear that. So, how old was he?
72, I think it was, in his 70s, somewhere. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, Susan, our crack reporter, is on this. Vegas now on a 5-game losing streak. Ooh, I hate to say this is terrible. I shouldn't be like this because, again, especially George McPhee's president, former teammate of mine. But there's something about when that team makes a bunch of moves like that and then they start losing. I'm almost like, see, I told you so. It's like I just
yeah. Well, you're an "I told you so" kind of guy.
Yes, I am. That is true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a battle down there, and like they could lose. I think their team is better than other teams.
Yeah,
there, but
I agree. Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Right. So they've played 62 games right now, and they're ahead of Dallas, who's played 58 games. They're ahead by 1 point. And again, there's even Vancouver that's creeping up there as well. So they're 1 point behind. So
yeah, it's going to be a battle there.
Yeah.
I watched Edmonton play last night. They've won at least 3 in a row, maybe.
Yeah.
And although they were sloppy against the Red Wings, they allowed the Red Wings to come. They were up 3-0 in the first 5 minutes of the game, and the Red Wings ended up tying at 5-5, and had a chance to win it. Just couldn't. Had some looks on late in the game, and then it wasn't Evander Kane. It was I forget who scored, but somebody scored to make it 6-5, and then Kane got an empty netter.
So here locally, so the Islanders will be sellers, right?
Right.
Who do you think they're going to be there?
Well, Clutterbuck is the guy that I think I've heard the most about. People just want that. He's a playoff style player,
Right.
and I think there will be several teams interested in him.
Sure.
Once you get that reputation like he has, he's a hitter.
Yeah.
You feel like you're always going to be in the playoffs because if your team doesn't get in, someone's going to trade for you.
Right. Definitely. Do you think they trade Chara? Think somebody would take on Chara?
I do. I think that's certainly plausible. With Chara, it'll be, he'll have to feel right about it,
Right.
Which is his right. He's earned that right.
Totally. So what's the guess? Maybe a place like, how about Calgary for him? In Calgary?
Yeah, maybe.
Big leader in the dressing room, big body.
There's some people that have, I think you mentioned it too, that Giordano going back there.
Yeah.
So
that'd be interesting.
I think the real important piece in the defenseman is what happens with Hampus Lindholm.
Oh.
The Ducks still trying to get him signed. They're making an effort. But if it doesn't happen, then he's in the mix, and that changes everything. Because now all of a sudden we got 3 big timers, and he and Giordano and Sherratt. And then, but if they sign him, now there's only 2, and we know Minnesota's looking, we know St. Louis is looking, we know Boston's looking, we know the Rangers are looking, all for a left shot D.
Right. So okay, we had talked before with the Rangers and about Pavelski. He signed with Dallas, so he's off the market now. Drew isn't linked to the Rangers, and I don't think the Philly would trade him to the Rangers anyways. So who would as far as the forward goes now with the Rangers, who would they be after? Who would they want?
Well, I saw I first heard the rumor, and then I actually read it as well. Of if Lindholm is available, Lindholm and Raquel from Anaheim as a pair.
Oh, really? Wow.
Card Raquel, which would give them an offensive player, and also the left shot demon that they're looking for.
And then who would they have to give up to get those guys? Is it
unknown?
Right.
It'll be a big package.
Right. So it'd have to be like a Cabo Caco kind of guy and draft picks
or just draft. I mean, they're going to want a prospect. Lundqvist maybe, Niels. Maybe something like him in a first round pick and a second round pick. Josh Manson went for a pretty good haul.
Yeah.
And Lindholm's better than him. So
that kind of sets the market, right? Once one player goes like that, everybody says, okay, that was the price for him.
Yeah.
Next guy better.
Right. Huh? So they're trying to get first rounder out of Sherratt. And I don't know. I think teams are resisting on that because he's not a top pairing guy.
Right.
But he is a shutdown guy.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm still. I believe you, and I've heard the stories that the Rangers are going to do something, or they're trying to do something. But so I believe it. But if they don't do something, like the price is just too high, I wouldn't be concerned. If I'm a Ranger fan, I'm like, okay, so this is a good hockey team. This is a contending team we have right now. We didn't make any moves. Well, okay, so it's you got your Sturkin in net all the time. He can steal games for you. So I'm looking around the league and I'm thinking, okay, yes, Tampa's great. Yes, Colorado's great. Yes, Florida's great. The Canes are great. All that stuff. But who says we can't beat any of those teams in the playoffs?
No, I mean, and there's something to be said for your position on that, because I think sometimes a lot of the trade deadline stuff is a keeping up with the Joneses type of thing, where everybody's making a move, so we should too. So our fan base says, "Well, look, Chris Drury is active."
Because you do look at a lot of these general managers that maybe are not really secure in their jobs, and they're feeling like, if I don't do something, so if I first of all, like a case like Philadelphia, so Chuck Fletcher's made all these moves that have not worked out, so he's really under pressure to get things done, right, to straighten things out. He just can't sit pat there and do nothing. And the same thing with maybe some other teams who have put a good team together, and then they think, geez, if I don't do something, then we lose in the first round. It's going to look like I didn't do enough for the team, right?
No, that's right. Well, and I think circumstances too dictate. Like, for example, Colorado has been the number one odds team in Vegas since the start of the season. Like they kind of go for it. Like, what is their fan base going to say if they just say, "Well, we'll see what happens"?
Yeah, but aren't they already the best team in the league right now? So
I don't think so.
You don't think they are?
I think Calgary's a better team in the West.
Yeah,
I think they're harder to play against. Like, it's the little things for me.
Yeah, it's a better playoff.
Calgary is a great face-off team. Colorado is one of the worst face-off teams. The special teams. Colorado's got a power play, but Calgary's great at killing penalties. Like they're, hitting. I noted that the two guys that they brought in Colorado over the last 2 days have all been bigger guys. I mean, Nico Sturm's not a heavy hitter or anything, but he's just bigger. He's 6'3", 210. So
see, this is an interesting comment we see from Rich Isaac here. My fear is that Drury overpays to satisfy the owner. See, I don't think that's a fear now. I know that Mr. Dolan made the changes last year, but I think he made the changes more not because of the where the team was in its development. It's the team was getting pushed around last year, and he wasn't happy.
How is that different?
Well, I think now they're not getting pushed around, and they're a way better team. So I don't think Mr. Dolan is going to step in. If Drury doesn't do something, I don't think he's going to step in, I don't think he's stepping in now and saying, you need to do something for this team. I think he's saying, listen, this team is heading in the right direction. I selected Chris Drury to run the team. He's doing everything I asked. We don't get pushed around anymore. We're a tougher, more aggressive team. You got a more aggressive coach in there. I think I think if I'm the owner, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I like the way it's going, and I trust you. Then if you say either we tried to make moves and we would have had to overpay to make those moves, or we're going to sit tight with what we got, I'm saying, okay, you seem to be, know what you're doing. Now, if they were to lose in the first round, then maybe that's something different too, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I think at all teams, the general managers are keenly aware how their owners feel about things.
Yes. Very true. Yeah.
I think they just have a sense. Now, there's different degrees of being involved. Like, I don't think Dolan calls every day.
Yeah.
He's not as involved as, say, Dundon is in Carolina.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Or Leopold in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Where those guys are just more invested, with the teams. But
and Mr. Dolan, he's got the Knicks there too. Which the history shows he's more in tune with what's going on with the Knicks than he is with the Rangers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. But part of being a good general manager is knowing how to manage up.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Don Waddell, your buddy, one of the reasons he has survived so long in this league is he does that very well.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Especially with an owner like Mr. Dundon there too.
And when I say manage up, I don't really mean it as in actually, getting your owner to do what you mean. What I mean by that is the ability to get along with your owner. And to, to be independent and yet also, respect that your owner has invested a lot of money and, has the right to have his opinion about things.
Definitely. But it is a tricky balance though too, because
yes, it is.
Yeah, you can't just do what the owner wants you to do, because if I'm the owner, I'm saying, well, why am I even hiring you? I mean, I'll give you my suggestions as an owner, but then you better have a good reason why. No, that's not what we're going to do. Here's what we're doing. So you get respect back and forth, right? So
yeah, I don't think many owners think like that. That's the way they should think. But
you really don't think so? Really?
I like, it's nice to say that an owner, doesn't want a yes man. But I think most owners do want a yes man. So,
yeah, man.
I mean, I think some guys do like that. They want, they want idea guys, and they want, but I think some guys, want that. When I tell you to do something,
Right.
And one of my all-time favorite stories about ownership, and this is a kind of a positive flow story because it involves the late Mike Ilitch, who was a really good owner in Detroit and really let his GMs mostly do what they want. But Ken Holland told me that after the expansion draft, when Nashville came in, Mike Ilitch called him in his office. Kenny said, I didn't know what this was going to be about. And he comes in, and Mike's sitting at his desk, and he said, Kenny, he says, I don't know what you know about Doug Brown, but, I know Doug Brown very well. And, this move to Nashville is hard on him. His kids are enrolled here in the Catholic school, and there's a lot going on, and he's ingrained in the community. And, and I really like him personally. Do you know Doug and his family really well? He's married to Wellington Marisdal, and he's going on and on. Finally, after about 10 minutes, Ken says, it's just, excuse me, Mr. I, are you just trying to tell me that you want me to bring Doug Brown back? Because I got news for you. If you want Doug Brown back, I'm on the phone immediately.
I remember you told us.
And Mike Ilitch started laughing. He goes, yeah, I want to get Doug Brown back. That's all you got to say.
And that's the key. He didn't do it very often either, right?
No, he hardly ever did it, which is why, I think it made him. But I think that Ken Holland and for him, Jimmy Devellano learned that when Mike Ilitch did want something, you delivered it because, he was willing to spend money to get players and everything else. And,
for years there, that was the place to be. Both because Kenny Holland was a fantastic general manager, was really communicated with the players, told them why he had to pay him what he was paying them. And the Ilitch family, the way they ran the team was fantastic. I remember Dallas Drake that I represented in his career. He got released by St. Louis, and he called me up. I was representing him. He said, I want to get to Detroit and don't F it up. He said, that's all.
Yeah. No, it's where people wanted to go. Yeah. Well, I mean, Steve Yzerman is still with the Red Wings, let's see, 18, 17, 39 years after he started there. And it's because of the Ilitch family. Yeah. And it's, like Mike is gone, but Marion is still there.
Sure.
And Steve thinks the world of Marion.
Yeah.
And I think, that's key. And, the relationship between ownership and management is very important. Yeah. And it's important for the community as well. I've long believed, and I say this regularly, that, even though it's a big business, I think when someone buys a sports team, they have to accept the idea that this is a community property.
Yeah.
And you owe it to the fans to do things that maybe you wouldn't normally do.
Totally.
When you're running a business. That doesn't mean you need to go broke, but it does mean that, you got to stretch yourself a little bit, and you got to think about how it's going to impact the fans and how how they're going
to. You'd said that to me before, and I never really thought about it, but it is very true, right? That it's because without the fans, you've really got nothing, anyways. So
right, I mean, but I think you owe it. You owe it to the community, and not only that, but to businesses in the area, like that the sports team, they create a lot of revenue.
Yep. So it is, especially a city like Detroit, it's a source of pride too.
Right.
It's interesting. You talk about the ownership and the management relationship, and the story I hear, and I haven't heard it firsthand. When Brian McClellan got the job in Washington, George McPhee, that we all played together before, had the job as general manager, did a fantastic job, and was let go. And when Brian McClellan went in for an interview with the owner asked him. I can't remember how he asked him the question, but ultimately, McClellan said to him, "Listen, you're a bad owner." And not because of not spending money, but his being too involved and not letting the people do their jobs properly. And this is what I'm told, anyways. Then he got the job. I don't know if that impressed the owner that he said that, or if it woke him up, or how that worked. But
wow,
that's interesting. Yeah,
it could be an urban myth.
Yeah, very true. It could be an urban myth. Yes. Yeah. It's a good story.
No, it is a real good story. I think Brian McClellan, by the way, is a very good general manager. Yeah. I think he's underrated. He's kind of not assuming. Yeah. And so people don't realize. But if you look at his history, he's been very aggressive with his team. He makes big trades.
Yep.
Well,
they won their cup there, and George, rightfully so, got a lot of credit for putting that team together before he moved on to
sure.
But you're right. At the end of the day, it's the same thing with Breezeball down in Tampa. Steve Eisman got a lot of credit for putting that team together, but both cases, the new GM had to put the finishing touches on that team before they won.
He did, and they weren't just adding one guy. Like Breezeball did change the look of that team in terms of the way they played. Yeah. So, and the other thing too is I didn't really recognize this, but someone told me this, and I looked it up, and he was right. We always think like, the good coaches, well, they have success all the time. But John Cooper did not have success right away at Tampa Bay.
And another urban myth was that a lot of the people in that organization didn't think that he was a good coach, but Steve Eisman did, and he stuck with them.
Yeah,
they had discussions about getting rid of him as coach. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to stick with him. Although, in Detroit here, the crowd is out with pitchforks and torches, and they're ready to.
What do you think? Do you think he's a good coach?
Blashill, I do think he's a good coach, but there does come a time when, Paul Maurice, basically said it when he left. They weren't listening to me, and I think the 9-2 loss, is really kind of the turning point. Like I can't imagine that Steve Eisman accepted that. Right. I bet he was totally outraged by that loss.
Okay, so if the logic is then that the team has stopped listening to the coach, if you're Steve Eisman, you're saying, okay, do you give in then and fire the coach, and now you've kind of like rewarded the players for not listening to the coach?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think they think of it like that. I don't think either group does. Like, I don't think that the team is trying to get him fired.
Right.
So I don't think so. I think they'll just let it play out. I mean, there is a shelf life on coaches.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess I just like that stability. You've got, but maybe, teams that win. Lou Lamoriello's had a great career. He's always fired coaches. There's sometimes coaches they
Yeah, and Jeff Blashill is like second in seniority. So.
Yeah, you told me that. Yeah, you said that the other day. Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, what they do there.
So trade deadline is 3:00 on Monday afternoon. Still.
Yeah, and I expect Boston to make at least a couple of trades. They're going to get a defenseman and a forward, I think.
So who do you think is going to do the most? You mentioned Boston a couple of times.
Yeah, I think Boston will do. I think there'll be. I think Colorado, as it turned out, is going to end up with the most because I see them. They've made 2 already, and I see another trade in their future. I don't think they've given up on Giroux.
And interesting, they're not waiting until the end. They're making these trades right now, where they still have time to, right?
Yeah, well, they did lose Landeskog for a week-to-week deal.
And Chychrun in Phoenix is out 2 to 4 weeks, you're saying, but still get traded. Right.
Yeah, and if you're making a Chychrun trade, you're not just the teams that are trying to acquire Chychrun right now are teams that are already in the playoffs.
Right.
So they're not worried about getting in.
Right.
They're in, and they want him long term. Boston sees him as a good fit for Charlie McAvoy.
So I know Vegas is right up against the cap. We touched on this before, but they've got to be saying to themselves, we need to do something here. Like, we can't make all these trades and do all the stuff, make the goalie changes, all that, and then not make the playoffs.
They really can't, though. I mean, they can't even bring Alec Martinez back. And I don't see that they can do that. But there's been rumblings that if they're going to move somebody, they'll maybe Riley Smith, but I don't see that happening.
So they're going along. They have Gerard Gallant, George McPhee running everything, Marc-Andre Fleury, the goaltender. Now they decide they're going to change the face of the team. Right, McCrimmon now takes over. They get rid of the coach. They change the goaltender, and now they're struggling to make playoffs. And the problem is they've had so much success early in the career. The team. Now all of a sudden they're thinking not make the playoffs after all this. Supposedly we've improved this team, and now we're not going to make the playoffs. Yeah.
But if you're going to look at the crime scene here, the owner's fingerprints is all over that.
You think so?
Oh yeah.
You think he stepped in and said, like, we need to go sign, we need to change this team, go get Pietrangelo, change the goaltending.
I think he was responsible for McCrimmon coming in, and I think he is a guy that was, pushing to get Eichel, believed in getting Eichel.
Right. So how do you think that went down with McCrimmon? Because he was the assistant GM under George. Do you think he said, "Listen, I'm going to leave. I'm going to get another job someplace else if I don't"?
That's exactly what happened. They were afraid he was going to go elsewhere.
Oh.
So they just thought, we'll have a good two-headed monster here. But
Well,
it's, but I think he's a very active owner.
Oh, do you think he was when George was there too? Do you think he was pretty active, or because George had too much success? Oh, well,
it was active, but I think he was new to it, and now he's feeling his oats a little bit.
Right. And I think doesn't he have Murray Craven, the former Flyer, kind of his confidant too? They knew each other from where their cabins were back in BC or something like that before he bought the team.
Yeah, well, I do vaguely remember that. If that is true, I've lost that.
Yeah,
at the time. But
I remember a documentary on it one time talking about how before he owned the team, he would see Murray Craven all the time, and they sat down and said, "Okay, let's get this ball rolling to try to buy a team." And Murray Craven is kind of rode along with him on it. So,
yeah.
Karma. Oh, Susan's guy. Karma. That's a good word. What's going on in Vegas? And again, I feel bad saying that because George McPhee's a friend of mine, a former teammate. It's not like I want them to do bad. But again, I just don't, even when they were making all those moves, like I did the Marc-Andre Fleury thing, bringing Leonard in, they changed, like to me, the success they had with the team, and again, I'm a huge Gerard Gallant fan, was that it was a team with a bunch of, it wasn't all misfits that nobody wanted. There were some good players there. But he got the most out of that team. They kind of had that underdog mentality. And now they've lost that altogether. I think they look like a powerhouse. They should be a lot better than they really are.
Yeah, Susan mentions that they had an advantage, but they should have. I mean, the NHL had it right. This is a franchising business, and you charge them $500 million, as I recall.
Yep.
And what other business do you bring someone as a franchise player and then don't give him the tools by which he can do well?
And that's what they used to do too, right? That
was standard operating procedure, and I think now everybody looks at expansion differently. That you got to welcome them in, you got to prop them up, you got to help them.
Yep. I agree.
Columbus is a great example of why the old way didn't work. They started out great; it was new, everybody was excited, and then they didn't win for a long time, and then all of a sudden fans left, and then they had to struggle to get them back. So,
what if, speaking of Columbus, Doug McLean ran that team for many years there too. Where is he now? What's he doing?
Retired.
Oh, he's done. Oh, no more TV.
He hasn't. I don't think he's done any radio or TV.
So, interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
But Nashville, like we forget now because Nashville's such an exciting place that they almost lost their franchise.
That's right. Yeah.
Remember they had to have that ticket drive.
Yep. That's right.
There have been a lot of those franchises. We've never really won over South Florida with the Florida Panthers.
Sure.
So
yeah, very true, very true. All right, so Monday's coming up. That'll be our next show.
Yep, and we appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll be back. That'll be trade deadline day. There'll be a lot of, I think, early in the morning, TV people twiddling their thumbs a little bit.
Right. That's right.
Yeah. It's always a little difficult in the morning when there's nothing happening.
Definitely.
I'm predicting we had 17 trades last year, and I think actually we'll be a little above that. I did a team by team, and I think I came up with at least 20 trades, I thought.
Are you counting the trades that have already happened in that?
No, just what's going to happen on trade deadline.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. Very good. Good. Perfect.
All right. If you want to read me, DetroitHockeyNow.com and HockeyBuzz.com.
And you can listen to the radio version of this show at radio.co at 365 Sports. Again, radio.co at 365 Sports. Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.